All right, and I was actually going to take a minute here. We've got a pretty decent sized group here, and some of these names I'm not sure I recognize. And I was just going to kind of run down the list and give everybody a chance to say, just kind of say hi and real quick, what you up to lately? So Dave is here.
Yeah, I know Dave's here. Yeah.
I am here. Thank you, everybody. My name is Dave Finan. I'm working over in on the west coast of Florida in Pinellas and Pasco counties. I know that
Nice.
probably everybody that from Extensus knows where that is, but
Yeah.
my FileMaker exposure goes back to 2.1.
Wow.
Right about the same time as me. Wow.
Yeah, back in the early 90s, mid 90s.
Yeah, the bad old days.
When I worked for the local court system, when I was hired on, we were an all Mac shop developing in FileMaker. In the dark days, the word came down that we had to switch to Windows, so I left FileMaker at version 4. Fast forward to 2014, Windows 7 are databases. A lot of them were still running on FileMaker 4, and the powers that be said, we need to update these. So they came to me and said, "Do you think you could do this?" And I was, I don't know, not bright enough to figure out that there had been a whole lot of changes in FileMaker. So I agreed to do it, and here I am. I went to DevCon for the first time last year. This year, one of my coworkers, who I am training to replace me, she went in my place this year. She's an Access person, and she's not real enthused about FileMaker. But when she came back from DevCon, she said, "I couldn't believe how helpful people were, and I don't want to mess with Access again."
Oh, great.
Yay.
Yeah, I was truly pleased. So anyway, I'm retiring next July, moving on, but I'm here trying to get some questions answered and just get some more knowledge.
All right, good to have you. Good to have you.
Very cool.
Now, Frank, we've seen you here before, and I know I've talked to you a number of times, but you want to unmute for a moment and say hey?
How's it going? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
It's been pretty busy here, working on a project with server 14/15. Clients trying to figure out which one of the two they want to install. I don't know if you guys are familiar. There's an issue where if you're hosting a file with it's either server 14 or 15, and you're trying to run Pro on the same machine, and it's a multi-user file like interface data file kind of setup, you'll run into an issue where the interface file won't find the data file and vice versa.
Oh, no, I hadn't heard that. Huh.
There's actually a simple workaround where you include a secondary file reference. So normally your file reference is like file and whatever the name of the file is. You'll include a secondary file reference, which is FMNet, localhost, and then the name of the file again.
Boy, I bet that was probably a fun workaround to figure out.
Yeah, when it doesn't work and you think it's the WebDirect issue, but it turns out to be the FileMaker issue. And it only applies if you're using server, I believe it's server 15 and FileMaker 14. It has to be a very certain combination.
Yeah. That's good to know. That's good to know. I'm sure that somebody in the room here is going to run across that and save like 3 hours because you mentioned that.
Yeah, so write that down.
So,
Somebody write that down.
exactly. Either that or we can all just remember Frank said something about that. So
I'll try to find the link and post it.
Yeah, great. So you're coming to us all the way from Canada, right?
That's right, close to Ottawa.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
We
So,
ran a different problem today with FileMaker Client 15 on a database, 14 database hosted on server 14, and after 5 minutes of a connection, we would get disconnected and then a FileMaker window saying that our license required a connection to the server. And then you'd have to put the host in again. And it happened pretty much on cue from any 5 to 7 minute span.
Are you doing that from a PC or Mac or from like an iPad?
Doing it both machines are Intel Windows.
Okay.
are
Yes.
you on FLT? Are you on an FLT license?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sure sounds like an FLT server thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. We're required because an FLT license does require a connection to the registered server that's part of the FileMaker license for.
Oh, I'm sorry. FileMaker for Teams?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Because that does require you to connect to the server that is part of that FileMaker license for Teams bundle. Now, honestly, we haven't done the FileMaker license for Teams setup with any of our clients yet.
And
But that is the setup that they're doing with that.
and that might explain it, because the database is
Yeah.
hosted on our development server, which is in Pinellas County, and the user's client is in Pasco County and licensed by Pasco.
Yeah, I think a possible workaround. Now, I'm shooting in the dark here, okay? And if somebody else has actually seen that dialog box already, which this is the first time I've heard of it, but I suspected it would come up. A workaround that might be to either periodically or even permanently connect to a file on the server that's part of that license, even if it's just to open it in the background and just like open a window somewhere. Yeah, like open a window and put it off screen.
Okay, yeah.
Because that FileMaker license for Team is bundled with the server and is only intended to be used in conjunction with that server. It doesn't mean that you can't reference other servers, but you're locked to that server.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense. I think what we'll do is we'll just move that database over to the correct server tomorrow and see if that goes away.
That'd be real interesting to find out, because like I said, we haven't even seen that dialog box yet. The FileMaker licensing for Teams is fairly new, and frankly, FLT doesn't work out for a lot of our clients. A lot of our clients are back office and don't really do a lot of remote work. So I'm really interested to hear how that goes. And by the way, who's talking?
Dave.
Couldn't quite make that was Dave. Okay. Dave is here. Yes.
Yeah. I'll forward you a screen capture of the message so that you can see.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
Okay.
because it's always fun when you get to see an error message for the first time. Right?
Okay.
Well, it's even more fun if you know what it looks like ahead of time.
Exactly. The first time we'd seen it, we're looking, what in the world is that? And it's really weird when you say, file open remote and connect to the host. All the solutions would appear. You could open whatever one you wanted, and then 5 minutes later, you'd get this error message again.
Yeah, the clue was they said there would be kind of a grace period where you didn't have to connect to the server right away.
Now, I think the
But
grace
after
period is
a certain
about 5
amount of
minutes.
Yeah, well, now we know. Now we know. I think they were kind of vague about that grace period too. So,
Yeah.
So Jim Lord,
Hi.
how you doing?
Good. I actually started playing with FileMaker 4, if anybody remembers that.
I have recurring nightmares every once in a while. But,
Yeah, before Claris bought it out. Yeah.
wow. Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it?
Actually, not too bad. It was, it was a flat file system, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Once FileMaker went out of the flat file, I was very happy.
Well, it was relational. It was just sort of like doing a
yeah, right. It was quasi-relational.
Yeah, you had to do one file, one table. A lot of
Yeah.
replication. But
Oh, yeah.
are you doing that by choice or out of
What?
necessity for some god
That was
awful
way
reason?
back in the 90s. Come on, kid.
Yeah, yeah.
You asked some background, and I giggled. It was fun when it went from 4 to 2, when Claris took it over.
Right, right. Yeah, of course, the big leap was already mentioned, going into 7. That 6 to 7 was like that
Oh,
was a whole new world.
I think that was a major upgrade. What
Yeah,
was that, about 04, 05, something like that?
yeah, give or take. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
we had
remember
a
the
major
exact
upgrade. I
year,
was
but
working on a small telecommunication. It was a major issue at that major upgrade when conversion products and working weekends, but IT people work weekends anyway.
yeah, yeah. I don't think I remember the year because I think I blocked it out,
I don't blame you.
as traumatic. So, and let's see, we got Jason Bork. You see, I've got your blog recording actually pulled up on screen coincidentally. How you been?
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Going well, going well.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can
So,
hear you great.
I'm primarily in marketing, but I manage 8 databases in the company. And just recently, in order to squash a slow bug on our main database, I upgraded to Server 15 to
Now,
get the top calls.
is this a bug that works slowly, or a bug that makes everything else work slow?
Um, it was a script that would do a find, and it would slow down everybody. So,
Oh,
it would only happen every so often.
mm,
It was a perform
the
script
worst time.
on server.
Yeah.
Oh, those are the best.
So I upgraded to Server 15 to get the top call stats, so I'm excited about tonight's call.
Oh, good.
But when I upgraded, I got the same issue that, I forget his name, all my scripts that did self-imports on the server also had a FileMaker client installed, which would do imports every night into the server, which couldn't be handled by the server itself. And all those imports were imported into itself broke. So I had to go through and create a variable and just pass that same location. And I used 2 different. I tried localhost, that didn't work. I ended up I forget what I did. I think it was a combination. Maybe it was the IP I did to the file. Where it actually has a direct FileMaker reference. But once I did that, everything started importing fine again. But it was all to get to the top call statistics, which I've been playing with. So I'm excited to see tonight.
Yeah, well, we're anxious to get into that, and you'll definitely be able to provide some input there. That's great.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. Really timely. I'm considering doing a FileMaker Server 15 upgrade for one of our clients tonight after the meeting here. So we have some server-side scripts that run, and it sounds like we ought to be okay based on what you guys are saying. Nothing is contingent on a client running on the server itself to behave itself. But yeah, timely info.
Okay, and just rounding it out here, we got Jeff. I think I just pronounced your last name wrong again, didn't I? It's Geisler, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Geisler's.
I went and said Geisler again. I should know better. I even speak a little German. I should know that. But anyway.
It's the irony to screwed it up across.
Yeah, I know. They don't follow our rules.
Oh, definitely not. New to
How's
file.
it going?
Yeah, it's going good. I spent most of you guys are FileMaker guys for a long time. I'm just getting into it. 14 was the first one I really kind of dove into. Spent a lot of years in operations and accounting and finance, and lived in all those messes that you guys come across all the time and try and fix. And really enjoy fixing messes. And FileMaker really is an excellent way to get into something and eliminate the friction and improve customer service and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm a newbie. A lot I don't know. Chris, you've been very generous with your time and with your talents, and I do appreciate it. Excited to be part of this group and just to learn from you all. So that's pretty much my story.
All right, great. And Steve House, have you been with us before? I don't think I recognize the name. I apologize ahead of time if you've been here before and I don't recognize your name, but I'm horrible.
I don't know if Steve's got his microphone on. This is Eric Miller. Steve's on my staff. He's our server guy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Hey, well, you were next, Eric. I saw you sneaking in the back door a couple minutes late. How you doing?
Yeah, we're good. I've got the entire dev team here. We work till about 7:30 or so. So Steve's in the middle of a couple projects, but I asked him to just listen in because, of course, being that he handles numerous cloud, FileMaker Server 15 instances worldwide, we're definitely interested in what you guys have to say about the new server top call. We've been kind of playing around with it. We haven't really designed a solution to pull the data in a meaningful way just quite yet, but yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're excited to, we've looked at it a bit ourselves, of course. We're not coming into this completely blind, but really excited to get everybody's thoughts on it. So you guys and it sounds like especially Steve are going to be able to help us along here and just kind of workshop this together. So all right, well, before we dive into the meat here, we did have DevCon just flew by. Just a few weeks ago. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but I think the only ones here who went to DevCon are Eric and myself. Anybody else go to DevCon and I somehow missed them? Show of hands. And crickets. All right. So Eric and I attended DevCon. Had a pretty good time. I have a few notes about some kind of highlights, and I think Eric and I, both of us ended up doing a lot of networking, doing a lot of meetings with vendors and things like that. We probably didn't go to every single session, and of course, unfortunately, there is a large amount of stuff that goes on at DevCon that they keep reminding us is under NDA, which kind of limits the stuff we can talk about. So we did determine it's probably not enough to take up the whole PUG meeting, which is why we decided to have another kind of meaty topic. But I want to give you guys the highlights. If nothing else, encourage you guys to, if you can, try and make it to a DevCon coming up. There is one thing I want to say that they said this in an NDA meeting, but I really don't care. I'm gonna say this to you guys, that they made a point that there's going to be some more transparency coming up as far as upcoming features and new versions. That not only are they going to be, every year at DevCon, you go to the opening session and again at the closing session and some of the special sessions, they'll show you some features that are kind of skunkworks at FileMaker Inc. That they're working on for a version that may or may not be the next version. It's kind of an old joke from back when FileMaker 9 was coming out. The version that may or may not be 9 was the theme. So they end up showing us a bunch of features that are like, they're kind of done, and everybody gets all excited, and most of them make it into the next version, but not all of them. And then it's under NDA, so we can't really tell anybody about it, or we're not supposed to. They made a point this year that, of course, they're going to keep doing that, but they also said there's going to be some communication outside of DevCon and ahead of the release to give the community a little more information about what really is going to make the next version. So we can be a little more prepared. It is no secret that members of the FileMaker Business Alliance do get pre-release copies of new versions. Like, we'll get copies of FileMaker. I guess the next one would be 16. We'll get versions of FileMaker 16 before the general public, but it's really not that much in advance, right? And when we're trying to run a business based on FileMaker, or even if you're an in-house developer working on just one project, knowing what the upcoming features are is really important as you're trying to roadmap what do I want to work on next. And FileMaker expressed some understanding of that. and they're going to be trying to give us a little more of a heads up of what they are and aren't expecting to get into the next version. I know for ourselves a lot. Yes, yes.
So the last two versions that were released, because I have a site license, I was getting a just a preview webinar maybe 8 weeks out, and then they'd give us sample software, and then shortly thereafter it'd be released.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Are you a FileMaker Business Alliance member?
No, it was just a site license, and I'm a developer license too, but I'm not too sure which one it came through, but I was invited, and then we get sample software.
The developer, yeah. If you pay, I think the $99 a year, you get the developer side of it, and it's not actually the FBA, but it's the developer one that gives you that. But FBAs get to, especially Chris, he's platinum, but so we get to play with stuff even before that, and get a bigger say in what features come through and what the priorities are. So that's kind of where it comes out.
Yeah. So, yeah, there are different schedules. In my own opinion, it's never fast enough, and it's never going to be fast enough. Frankly, if I could sit in the engineer's office and watch them work, I still wouldn't feel like it was fast enough. But like I said, I think the important part is that FileMaker recognizes that we as developers need to know as soon as it's feasible for them to tell us, and they recognize that, and they expressed an interest in telling us as soon as humanly possible what's going to be coming out in the next version, and I for one really appreciated hearing that. So. I also I don't know about you, Eric, but I found a lot of the stuff in the opening and closing session. There was a lot of talk about the FileMaker community and a lot of the pro bono and charity work that gets done by the FileMaker community, and just some of the it sounds kind of cheesy, but the good works that the FileMaker community does for various organizations, it was really kind of inspiring. The story of the guy and his wife went on vacation and went to visit their son, who was working with youth with a mission on a medical ship in Papua New Guinea. And they decided for their vacation they were going to spend a couple of weeks with him on a medical ship. And these medical ships it's a ship full of doctors and nurses and other volunteers that go around providing medical facilities for those in need. The wife ended up, I guess, I'm not sure if I remember, I think she's like a registered nurse or maybe even a doctor. So she ended up volunteering her time. Well, the husband works for Gearbox. Actually, looking through our attendees today, we have somebody from Gearbox who's joined us before. But anyway, he's a FileMaker developer. So when she volunteered, he had nothing to do, and he started going around and watching people taking notes on paper and doing intakes and trying to keep track of people's symptoms and so forth. So he started whipping up a FileMaker solution, and in a matter of a couple of weeks, he was setting up a FileMaker server, FileMaker clients, contacting other developers and plugin providers and so forth. And by the time he left, had an up and working solution with iPads and so forth, where people were doing intakes electronically and more efficiently, and tracking the patients and things of that nature. Talked about a similar solution that got built by Soliant Consulting for the Luke Commission, which does some similar medical services for the underprivileged in Africa. There's a couple of links I'm just going to post in the chat area here that go into these things in much more detail than I could do them justice. But like I said, it was pretty inspiring to hear, what can be done with FileMaker. Not just that, they're doing these things for charity and doing them pro bono, but the fact that they could be put in a situation, see a challenge, and just fix it. Not have to have a huge team, not have to jump through, tons of hoops and things of that nature. They could very quickly and efficiently create a solution that really had an impact right away. And for once, it was an impact that wasn't about just making a few extra bucks. So that's always nice. Although I'm a big fan of making a few extra bucks, don't get me wrong. But and then to top it all off, in recent years, there's been the Developer Cup, which has been kind of a competition at the DevCon for it started off, I actually participated in the first Developer Cup, which was like the fastest developer competition, where they presented us with challenges, and we had like 5 minutes to do some weird challenge with an iPhone or something like that. And that has morphed, I think, to something a little more organized and a little more, frankly, a little more professional. And this year they did the Developers Challenge, where they formed a number of small teams of 3 or 4 people, and they found 3 charitable organizations in the Las Vegas area where DevCon was held, assigned a few teams to each organization, and I've got the organizations listed there. And then the teams had a competition to see who could solve those groups' biggest technological challenge during the week of DevCon. So during the week, they worked together and developed a quick solution. Certainly not an end-to-end solution, but something that could immediately be deployed, something that could at least have an effect on their productivity, and something that they could turn around and build on later. So it all kind of underlined, I think, how FileMaker can be used to just quickly get in and solve a problem. I really enjoyed the theme. I thought it was really creative and different from past years. So, Eric, anything to add on that front, or I'm sorry, whoever that was?
A couple of years ago, guys, I did one for. You ever hear the Maccabea games?
Not ringing a bell.
Well, you hear of the Olympics, right?
Sure.
The Maccabea games are basically an Olympic type event for Jews, and it takes place in Israel. And one of my friends was the lead photographer for Team USA. So I did build them a system during the summer to have 8 photographers at over 450 different, coordinated photographers over 450 different events at the Maccabea games.
Oh, wow.
And the one thing I found out was really funny is actually Google Mapped in Israel worked, but their addresses are weird over there. But that was cool. I did get a free T-shirt and a Maccabea game hat for my work.
Right. Yeah, we've done a few relatively small pro bono projects over the years. I think what's for local organizations, but I think what's been striking to me when we run across these organizations like outreach programs and things like that is that often what they need is really, really basic. They just need to keep track of the people they're taking care of. They're not looking for the next SAP. Yeah. And often you can have a really big impact with stuff that for we who deal with some very complex business challenges. A lot of these charitable organizations, we can have a really big impact without really having to spend a whole lot of time, and we can do a lot of good. So
I need to talk to you offline because I just went on the board of directors at the World Disneyana fan club, and they're keeping all the records in on an Excel spreadsheet. So I want to write something up, but I need to talk to you about how much it would cost for servers and stuff like that, so people can on the board can access it.
yeah, let me know. Let me know.
Okay.
Reach out back channel. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do later. I just long you brought it up. I was thinking about it, and we have a meeting on Saturday too. So.
Yeah, Chris. On that same topic with our Cosmos application, we've actually been spinning up numerous copies of it online for various charities. The most recent of which here in Tampa is the On Bikes charity, which each year they give out around 15,000 bicycles to youth, and so in their back office they just didn't have a way of keeping track of all the vendors and all the donations and everything else, all the paperwork that's going with it, and all the scheduling and so on and so forth. So we just spun them up a version of Cosmos, and they just go ahead and they can track everything inside there. So we've been doing that more and more.
Yeah. There's actually even a FileMaker philanthropy site. I don't know if everybody can get into this, honestly, or if you have to be part of the FileMaker community site, but I'll post a link anyway, where you can find out about others, but also, post your own experiences and, maybe get some exposure, but also maybe get some assistance, if somebody else is interested in helping you out on something. Anyway, as far as sessions I attended, just kind of a quick rundown. Saw a session with Joe Scarpetta of the Scarpetta Group. He was kind of showing off the base solution that they're working on, which, as anybody who's listened to me for more than 5 minutes knows, base solutions are near and dear to my heart. It was really interesting seeing somebody who's approaching some of the same challenges but still approaching them from different directions, sometimes coming to different conclusions. So really enjoyed that. I actually missed the one by Todd Geist. I was going to ask Eric if you had caught that one. I meant to make it, and I ended up...
That was fantastic.
Yeah? Of course
Todd,
it was, because I missed it. So,
well, so Todd did an entire demonstration from start to finish on deploying Node.js, and I mean within minutes he had a web server spun up, and then he was able to publicly host it using these different services, and then it's essentially what the end game was, is that using Node.js as your essentially as your front end, it was actually, he spun up an entire custom web publishing page that was pulling and querying data and displaying it beautifully, really just within about 20-30 minutes. I mean, of course he had, he'd written some scripts up and stuff, but he posts this all on modularfilemaker.org, and it's really kind of exciting because we're trying to do a lot of stuff here too. Where predominantly we use PHP to go in and pull data out of FileMaker and then show that on a web page. But he's using Node.js, so it's kind of neat to see what you can do with it and how quickly that's growing as a main as an actual main type of language to use at a lot of different firms.
Okay. Man, I really do wish I'd caught that one. I ended up in a conversation where I had to, I just had to figure out the lesser of two evils, and I missed that one. So, and of course, last time I missed his session was at the pause on error before last, where he ended up kind of rolling out selector connector. And I managed to miss that one, which was apparently epic. So I should just make a resolution to never, ever miss his sessions.
Well, he also did one, I mean, just a couple notes that I had on the Node.js Because really, there's going to be a video that's going to come out from FileMaker here soon with all that. But he's using WebStorm as his editor, and then he's using the Express version, which is the just with the main code snippets and stuff. So those are some of the key notes there. But I did attend his other session on the SDK launcher file, and I don't know if anyone else has had a chance to play around with the new iOS SDK, but it's pretty awesome. So we've been flipping our FileMaker Go apps into actual apps you can either deploy through Enterprise MDM to iPads and iPhones, or we are in the submission process right now with the App Store using a FileMaker app to be in the App Store. So that's pretty neat to actually be able to do that. 6 months ago, I never thought we'd ever be able to use FileMaker to actually make that kind of thing happen. But I have all sorts of notes on the do's and don'ts in the SDK launcher file. But again, all those notes are actually on Todd Geist's website, so you can just watch any of his videos. And I think Richard Carlton Consulting, he also has, they actually work together on a lot of that, and he has all those videos available too.
Okay. Yeah, let me. By the way, if nobody's noticed, I'm posting some links in the chat area so that we can. You can follow up on some of these things. There's in-depth videos that are several hours on their own. So if you want to drill down on one or more of these topics, you can. I did attend a session by, I'm not going to pronounce this, which was very well presented. It was called Developer-Friendly Custom Apps. I do have to say it was pretty basic, and I was kind of disappointed by that, but on the other hand, it was basic but important. She was talking about not just the importance of commenting, which we can never talk about enough, right? Everybody needs to comment more, including me, right? Everybody thinks that they're going to remember this, and it's perfectly obvious until they come back and look at their own code 10 minutes later. But she talked about some creative things that are often forgotten, and and some of them are obvious, like naming your scripts such that you can, using your naming convention to be informative, letting the names of your scripts indicate what parameters they take and things like that. And also putting comments right on layouts, but using the hide win so that they always hide, because of course nothing hides in layout mode. So really just kind of driving home a point that we all know that we never really think about, or don't think about enough, is that be really courteous to not just other developers, but to your future self. To comment the crap out of everything, your scripts, your layouts, your custom functions, your fields, yeah, so it was kind of reinforcing something that, again, we all know. There were a couple of creative ways to do that, but you can't hear it enough. So I thought it was worth mentioning. Went to a session from Doug West at Excelsis with some tips and tricks. That one, I think his speaker notes are out. Actually, I have a link to all the speaker notes somewhere. I'm not finding them. Yes, I am. Okay, I'm going. This is an important link. This is all the speaker notes and materials that have been posted by the speakers at all the sessions at DevCon. Of course, it's up to the speakers to post notes, and some of them are just like PowerPoints with no notes on them. But he showed some good tips and tricks, like how to do drag and drop with portals, for things like reordering portals really easily. Probably his biggest point on that is that containers are easier to do drag and drop with than text fields because containers by default overwrite each other. Something you drag into a container will overwrite the whole field, whereas by default, if you drag something into a text field, it appends to whatever's already in the text field. So that part was an interesting approach to something we've done before, but also he brought up the get modified fields function, which is actually had some problems in FileMaker 13, particularly in the separation model. It it just basically didn't work in the separation model in FileMaker 13. Turns out that's been fixed, so I now have that on my list to go back and use that. Get modified fields will tell you all the fields that were modified since the record was opened. Very useful if you're trying to audit a record. If you want to find out, what has the user changed since they opened this record. So that was pretty exciting, but pretty specific stuff, and it is kind of tips and tricks stuff. I didn't want to just hijack his whole presentation, so I'd encourage you to check out those materials, which include demo files and so forth. So let me just put his name, actually his session name here in the chat. So if you want to, that is much more than just a PowerPoint. It's actually got demo files and so forth. And then there were two under the hood sessions that were really must-see. One was Clay Makel. If you haven't heard of him, a YouTube video of him got out sometime last year, and I'm going to post that link as well. Clay Makel. This guy has somehow been behind the scenes for God knows how long. He's been involved in the development of FileMaker since FileMaker 0. Instrumental lead engineer in the development of the Draco FileMaker engine. And in this video, and also in the session that I saw at DevCon, he goes into the real nuts and bolts of what happens when you look at a record in FileMaker. How does data get from your database on the server down to your machine, onto your screen? What's the order that things happen? And it's really kind of fascinating and revealing. When you look at an operation and go, well, that doesn't sound that hard. And for example, he goes specifically through the steps that it takes to log into a file on a server, and there's 7 or 8 very large and complicated steps that have to happen in order for that to work. And I think it makes you think about FileMaker's operations a bit differently, and I think gives you some new respect for just how well FileMaker handles what is a pretty complicated set of operations. And then finally there was John Thatcher, who is kind of works closely with Clay and has been with FileMaker almost as long, and he did the under the hood server performance and talking about FileMaker Server 15 with the top call logging, which is what we're going to try and workshop here tonight. So that was as fast a run through as I could manage. Eric, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, there were just a few other things that were pretty interesting at DevCon. Speaking of Todd Geist again, he's actually was working with another firm who they have a .NET solution, and they've been interested in FileMaker in order to get it more extended and to get it be able to talk more easily to other applications. And just so happens that they're in the door hardware business, and we have a solution that's specifically for firms that install doors. And when we actually met at the conference there, and through Todd Geis is helping him write some JavaScript to have his solution be able to be launched from mine, and then you do the configuration in his, and then it sends the results back to mine. Because we do all the complex estimation, like where you have all the orders, and then you track it internally with all the job costing. But his is very specific to the configuring of this difficult door hardware stuff. So it was really terrific that we can do all that now, and because he was looking at trying to write all this stuff in FileMaker, and so when we met, we were like, wow, this is great. We've already flipped a bunch of clients to each other and stuff. So that was just great. That's using predominantly the FMPURL technique on the desktop.
Oh, that's awesome.
Something else interesting. I don't know if anyone uses Ring Central as a telephone service, but there's again with the FMPURL, because Ring Central has you can install an app locally on your desktop, and when your phone rings through Ring Central, it will alert that app that you have an incoming phone call, and that app allows you to fire a URL that you can put in a parameter to. And so obviously, again, using FMP URL, you can actually fire up your solution, identify the inbound caller by telephone number and anything else that RingCentral is providing you, and pull up the record instantaneously. So all of a sudden you have this really easy workaround where inbound phone call comes in, new window comes up in your solution saying, hey, here's the account of the person calling in. So when you pick up the phone, everything is sitting there waiting for you. So that was really kind of neat to see that as an option.
Was that, correct me if I'm wrong, was that Julio?
Yep.
It was, yeah. I forgot about that. I did talk to him, and what surprised me is I ran across Ring Central a few years ago, and we were looking at them as a electronic fax provider, and we were only looking at them that way. And it turns out that maybe even that long ago, but that they've moved into the VoIP space. And
they're doing a lot of stuff. They're one of the biggest players.
Yeah. So that really, I think, deserves some attention, and we do get requests like that pretty often. And maybe it's not as much of a barrier as it used to be to ask a business to change their phone system. It used to be you go into a business and they've got this huge PBX system and all this other crap, right? And they're like, no, you'll get my phone system and you pry it from my cold dead hands, right? But yeah, that may really open some opportunities if you can get people to switch over to Ring Central or something like it. But Ring Central, that's
definitely one option. Using a service like Twilio, you can program that for almost any kind of phone system, and that's what we've been actually implementing into one of our applications, is so that you can then talk to just about anything, and then from there again pull up the correct record. But it was interesting that natively with Ring Central as shipped, without any additional configuration, you can actually fire an FMP URL and then in your own FileMaker solution, make something happen. So
I had known about the Twilio thing. Maybe.
So like companies like Uber and stuff, they have it set up where that will send a phone that can, based on an inbound call or text message and vice versa, it can actually handle all of that and then allow you to communicate via an API to push and pull information. So it's pretty neat.
Wow. Wow. I wonder if that might make a good FMPUG session. I'm just saying. Or even a brief demo or something like that. I'd be really interested in learning more about that. But
one of the other interesting things, we do a lot of point of sale stuff, and so we use Stripe heavily, and there are some limitations where if you're trying to deploy a retail point of sale system, FileMaker can go only so far natively. But there's a device from CAN, C-A-Y-A-N, called the Genius Terminal, and it's configurable to allow FileMaker to speak to it and vice versa. And it allows you to have then credit card, debit card, chip and swipe, and Apple Pay and Samsung Pay, basically everything you ever needed. It's in a standard type of device. It actually looks like everything you see at stores, but it can actually speak to FileMaker and handle everything. So we've been playing around with one of those and getting that ready to go. And Kai Systems, K-I. I think I'm saying that right. It might be Key or something, but they already deployed that in a FileMaker solution to a clothing retailer in, I want to say almost 30 locations. I think so. They're the first ones out of the gate with it, but pretty cool stuff.
Wow. Well, you are the integration king, Eric.
Well,
I think you have done more plugins and integrations than all the other developers I know combined. I swear to God.
It's just really neat.
It's amazing.
FileMaker can be the central nexus of everything, and it's just so easy. Well, I mean, obviously there are issues, and I know, Chris, you spoke earlier about, there's a lot of stuff that was under NDA, but it is neat that FileMaker is definitely moving quickly into making API integrations so much easier with full support and stuff. So it's I can't go into any kind of details on it, but it's really exciting where we're going with all that. But
yeah, I think it's safe and worth saying that there's more to come. So. All right, we should probably leave some time for Jason and his topic. I did want to close out by saying at DevCon the name tags have gotten larger and larger and larger, and I'm predicting that next year we'll be wearing sandwich boards. And just in case anybody's wondering, we did get a backpack this year. It's not a terrible backpack. And just one more thing, they have I think there's a few of us in here that are FileMaker Business Alliance members. They have designated an FBA Partner Council, and some of those names should be recognizable to at least some of us. And so again, FileMaker's commitment to working more closely with the community and getting more feedback from the community. They do have now a group to kind of represent us, the community, and kind of speak for us as FileMaker makes their business decisions and their directional decisions. They plan to consult with these people to make sure that they're taking the community's needs in mind. So I think very encouraging moves by FileMaker. So, and with that, let me see. Shall I switch this over to Jason? Are you there? Is your computer up and running at the moment?
It just irks me to say that you have to ask that.
Well, I'm just saying. Our meeting no sooner starts than your computer dies. I don't know. I think your computer has stage fright, so I was just trying to be accommodating.
Yeah, I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here at my desk, and I have no fewer than 3 laptops here. So I'm searching frantically for something that will behave its damned self. So.
Well, just my jab at the Mac folks. I'm just saying that I have my ThinkPad here, which has worked fine for like 3 years in a row. I haven't had this kind of problem. But
that thing is absolutely ancient, Chris.
Works like a charm. Works like a charm.
Works every day. Well, all right. So so full disclosure, I have the sort of aircraft carrier 17-inch MacBook Pro, which I think finally has given completely up the ghost. It just doesn't do anything anymore, unfortunately, and it's a sad day. I I don't think I can replace it. So I was trying to use a ThinkPad very like Chris's. I call it Thinkenstein because it doesn't have like a monitor attached or anything.
I stole the monitor.
And so I eventually decided when that was failing to go and steal one of my kids' laptops. So I'm really limping along here. But really, for the purpose of our meeting tonight, I'm going to run this from Wayne's laptop because he's again, I said earlier, hosting our FileMaker Server 15 on his MacBook Pro. So it'll probably just make sense to kind of show things from over there, just so we don't have to keep hopping around so much. So you'll have to endure us, me kind of giving Wayne instructions from time to time, but I'll try to keep that to a minimum. A couple of thoughts. I didn't jump into the discussion before, but I would like everyone to take a look at the cartoon I posted about making comments in your code. It's ridiculously funny to me, anyway. It's in the chat there. It's an XKCD link. Chris, you probably know the one already. And let's see, what else? I think I should probably say, since Chris was talking about philanthropy and being very modest at the time, he did come first runner-up in the very first Developers Cup. So.
No. Well, first runner-up is like what? Fourth place?
Something first like loser, I think, is what Ricky.
Yeah, first loser. But in my own defense, out of 16 contestants, 8 got no points at all. So it was tough.
The Developers Cup, the Developers Cup, which is probably, in a good way, evolved into this much more, much more useful thing that Chris was talking about last DevCon. That had some interesting beginnings, but there we were. We were in the mix, and Chris did really well, so we're proud of that. Yeah. And let's see, one more thing. I guess Chris, I noticed your picture of the. Your DevCon tag didn't have your sort of stole-like list of DevCons you've attended. Did they not do the ribbons?
Oh my God! Yeah, they did the ribbons, but yeah. For those of you who haven't been to DevCon, when you go, you pick up your ginormous tag that like you don't want to wear outside of the hotel because you look like a god-awful tourist, right? And then to make things worse, they have these cups with all these little stickers you can put on to indicate what versions are you certified in and what part of the country are you from and which DevCon is this to you and are you a member of the FBA or are you FBA Platinum and all this other stuff. And if you're not careful, you end up like Stephen Blackwell, for instance, who's been to 20 of these things, 21. He has been to literally every single one. One year he actually wore all of them, and I kid you not, it went down to his knees. He had all these stickers, and it just went down to his knees. And I'm like, it's just ridiculous, Like, can we just have a hello, my name is? That's all I want, That's embarrassing.
That's fun. I like to wear my stickers when I go, just because they're not. It's not quite as cumbersome as Stevens, but that's a funny little convention that's going on there. So yeah, and I'll second Chris in that if you've never been to DevCon, it's a spectacle. FileMaker puts it on in the essentially the same way Apple does their conventions. So it's kind of the you're really doing it on like a world-class technology convention model, and it's something to see. It's a sight to behold, and a really cool experience. A ton of geeks around, so it's just really fun from that angle. So if you can break away and spend the money on it, it's extremely cool to do it at least once, just for the fun of it. We're hoping they come back to our side of the country eventually. That would be really cool. We keep having to travel pretty far for that, but meanwhile, I think Chris, you didn't mention we're allowed to say where it is next year, right?
Oh yeah, it's in Phoenix yet again.
Yeah, so back to Arizona again next year. So
they like to go to really hot places in July and August. By the way, sorry my audio dropped out. I'm sure if I had Apple headphones, that wouldn't have happened. But
Apple doesn't make headphones, Chris.
Oh well, how would I know?
It's a sore point, damn it. Why don't you make headphones? Anyway, all right, so we'll get started here. So, but I definitely want to stress that really this is a workshop, and we kind of got you guys. Yeah, you can get your beats, Jeff. That's right. But those, I think they just sort of bought those to be cool. They wanted to have beats like everybody else, right? yeah, tonight, we really, again, because Chris, as he mentioned, we didn't have a full-blown prezo on DevCon. We did come up with this idea sort of at the last minute, and really because we haven't done it yet. And so I want to obviously, kind of put my cards on the table. And Jeff, you're cracking me up. I'm gonna have to shut off your comments so I can concentrate. Yeah, we've got a couple of our clients who are getting started, getting ready to upgrade to 15. Chris mentioned already we haven't, just because of we do a little bit of hosting with our server, and we can't upgrade to 15 because of the licensing constraints with hosting for multiple companies. But we've got a couple of our clients who are getting ready to go there, and we just don't have the we don't have the experience yet. We haven't waded into that pond, and the top call stats log really is for me, in the past 10 years, troubleshooting, various and sundry performance problems, systems that just, wanted to fail regularly and horribly, that kind of thing. This is just an amazing development, right? Something that, a kind of tool that some of us who've been, entrenched in that kind of mess forever have been waiting for. And then, I guess like all new things that come out, we are probably got to have a bit of a learning curve, and so in inspecting our first look at a couple of the samples that we got from top call stats logs, some of it's pretty cryptic. So that's kind of what we want to dig into tonight, is talk about what kind of results you get back from that log, and what does it mean? How can we get some useful information there? Yeah, Wayne, you're killing me here. But overall, the big deal here is that we don't know about this, and we're super interested in this because obviously, like I said, I've got some clients who are in the process of trying to troubleshoot performance problems, and this is something we're about to do for them anyway. So we're very glad to hear that a few of you guys have already gone there and you've started using the tool to do some troubleshooting, and so we're gonna dig into this and kind of just look at what it does, talk about ways you can use that, and mostly just kind of brainstorm. What does this work? How does this work? And what kind of information does it give us? And where are the gaps? So I'll start by saying that I went on the internet to find out, who's explained this already, and I really found that there isn't a lot out there. It's new, so I suppose that's not that unusual or wrong per se, but those who have delved into it have done a pretty high-level explanation of it. So, for that kind of thing, if you want to just learn how to, turn on your stats and figure out where your logs are and learn how to make a FileMaker file out of a .log file, Google it. It'll take about 30 seconds and you'll be caught up. So there's some nice folks who have gone out and done some videos already on there. But that's about where it ends in terms of what you can find out there for resources for interpreting the logs. So Chris mentioned there was a session that he attended there at DevCon where it sounds like they got a little deeper in, and I've reviewed the notes from that. They were certainly helpful, much more illuminating than anything I'd find on the internet. But at the end of the day, it was still more about methods, more about how to take the log, get it into a FileMaker file, and how to review what's in there and try to make sense of it. But still not enough of the specifics that I think I'm really craving here. So that's kind of the angle I'm coming at this from, is that there's some new data that's coming back. That's coming back in that log that just doesn't make sense yet. There are words they're using in FileMaker parlance that we're just unfamiliar with. We don't know what those things mean yet. So I definitely want to expose that stuff. I want to put it out to the group and see who's talked about or who's thought about this, who's looked at this, and certainly then we'll spend some time just kind of going, well, if no one has anything about that that we've any experiences about that, then let's see what we can make of it. Let's put our minds together and see what we can collectively come up with in terms of just an overview of the logs and how to use them. Okay. So as I said, we're running this on Wayne's MacBook Pro here. So he's got FileMaker Server 15 all up and running. We put ourselves up a database called Contacts. It's the FileMaker. It's just the FileMaker sample file. You can spin up by opening FileMaker and choosing one of those prefab solutions. I've tinkered around with it in a couple of ways just to kind of get it ready to hopefully cause a little trouble, right? Because for the most part, right, the top call stats log is supposed to, only give you information about the most expensive calls to the server. So since we're in a kind of a controlled environment, we'll really only be making calls from one computer, so every call is a top call in that sense. So we really want to generate some serious traffic and try to do something that we can really see, observe on the logs and do as we say at ExtensiTech, poke it with a stick. Let's tweak something and see what kind of changes those things make to the logs and so forth. So, Wayne, go ahead and open up in FileMaker Pro 15, if you will. There, let's get the contacts database open and running. I have it open remotely as well. Wayne and I are not in the same room, not in the same location, so I have a WAN connection available as well. If the local connection doesn't make enough noise, we'll crank it up over the WAN and see if that does the trick. So as you can see here, we got a contacts table here. Again, this is pretty much exactly as you would see it if you open this file up out of FileMaker 15. And the key point here is that we made 1 million records. So if you see up there in the left-hand corner, this table just has a bunch of records. And particularly, I did that just one. Excuse me. Hey, Chris, don't give out the IP. Everyone will log in and crash us. Then
I was asking for it personally, but.
Oh, I see. I didn't know. That was private. Everyone disregard that I just exposed that. All right. So so I made 1 million records in the table just so we'd have a bunch of records, and particularly because the example that that Chris gave me from DevCon there, the guy made it part of his demonstration about just the traffic that's created when you open a FileMaker database and how that hits the log. So it's kind of a good simple use case to show what happens if you got a gigantic table full of records versus a table that doesn't have quite that many records in it when you're just opening up. So we'll run through that use case just to kind of get our feet wet and understand a little bit about the log and see what FileMaker can do for us. So in addition to that, I created a tab called Testing over there, just to the right of Details, Wayne. And what you can see is I've just put a field in there to let us have something we can manipulate. You just type a number in there, and I made a calculation so that from today it will show a list of records that were created that many days ago, roughly. So it's an unstored, in other words, an unstored calculation on this side of the relationship to other contacts. Don't be alarmed by the fact that there's no data in there. I created 1 million empty records, so just more or less wanted to get records out there that we could use to tax the system with. So right now, if you see, we got 100 days old records there. The total shown is 4,800, so about 5,000 records were created, apparently created within the last 100 days. So if for instance, Wayne, if you put like, I don't know, 25,000 days old in that field there, we'll get closer to the the 1 million records mark. We'll see how long that takes to resolve. You should see a little, summarizing that kind of thing. So that's the sort of traffic I'm just looking to create here, where this is significant. If you've ever watched the server stats, the old server stats, this is the sort of thing that if a user does this while everybody's working, you'll often see a very long delay for that user, plus anybody else who asks for anything after that will also queue up behind them with an apparently very long delay there. So that's again the sort of thing that if you've done too much of that in your solution and you got a lot of users and too many users start doing those kinds of things at once, you're going to make your server come to a crawl, right? I've talked about this a little bit in previous sessions about server, where being able to pinpoint and troubleshoot this kind of thing is a really valuable skill set. Unfortunately, like, no clients ever understand how hard this is, and they really want you to be able to log in and fix it in 5 minutes, but oftentimes it takes a great deal of observation. You have to sit on screen with users, and you have to watch the server while they're working, and as I said before, poke it with a stick for a while and just sort of see what happens. And so the great hope for Top Call stats log is that we got a tool now that will help us pinpoint, right? We won't have to do so much observation, and we won't have to do so much just sort of trial and error experimentation to come up with an answer for some of these problems. So So that's a pretty good lay of the land there. That should kind of tell you where we're starting off, and give you an idea of just the general tools we have at our disposal right this minute. So what I want to do obviously is experiment. I want you guys to say to come up with ideas and go, well, what if we did whatever in the next little while here, and we'll try that. We'll build some stuff in FileMaker, and we'll we'll see what it does to the logs, and we'll build a file in FileMaker to look at the logs, and we'll come up with ideas about how to manipulate that, and see if we can come up with anything good there. Just as in terms of getting the log going here, FileMaker 15 has added the controls for the log into the admin console. It's on the logging tab down on the database server section of the server controls, and you see it way down there at the very bottom. It's just a checkbox. Now it will behave itself according to all the rest of your logging settings. So up above you can see the collection interval and the log size. So the top call stats log just behaves as the same as your other logs. So if you haven't been into logging and seen server do this kind of stuff, server does create a few logs. By default, it will create an event log, no matter what. You don't have the ability to turn that off. But you can see there. Whoops, come back, Wayne.
Oh, sorry.
Showing the log there.
Hey, Jason.
Under the yes.
Hey, Jason. So just so you know, when the computer restarts, that log button turns off.
The top call stats.
Turn it back on. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh wow.
Okay. Great information.
Yeah, I want to make sure you didn't miss that either. That's very unusual.
Yeah. So thanks, FileMaker, for that. Now, the reason they did that, according to their own notes on that front, if you read the FileMaker server, the help file, getting started, etc., it says this is pretty expensive. So you want to do this for troubleshooting only. Don't just let this run indefinitely. Obviously, any logging that we do on this screen we set up, it costs you from a server resources standpoint. So what we're about to do is tune up this thing. We're going to change the collection interval to 1 second, so we can kind of see this. We can see stuff in real time almost. Well, I should say real time. It's real time for us. For computers, it's probably like eons. But every 1 second we want a new log entry, so we can kind of really hopefully get a step-by-step sense of what's happening. The settings I was about to mention before there were that under the logging section, you can turn on a couple of different logs there. There's the access log and the usage statistics logs that you can also have FileMaker server generate. All of these files get written into a directory in your FileMaker server installation. Again, top call stats log, no exception. It works the same way as the rest of those logs. So if you click that button down there, it's at the very bottom for top call stats. It'll create the log and, again, behave according to the settings above. So we've got this all turned on. 40 megabyte log size is probably sufficient. I guess brief explanation there. What happens is when any of the logs that FileMaker server is creating reach 40 megabytes, it will essentially save off a copy and then start writing a new log. Once that new log reaches the size 40 megabytes or whatever you've established there, it'll overwrite the oldest one and start writing a new log. So the idea there is if you're collecting a lot, 1 second interval is a lot. So you might want to turn up the size of your log if you're looking to capture several hours or days worth of transactions there. So again, like I said, top call stats will just behave according to these rules, and it'll write a log of whatever size you specify and keep one copy behind that. All right. So I guess let's see, Wayne, in preparation, let's go ahead and grab the current stats log. Let's throw it into FileMaker and make ourselves a file. This is pretty straightforward stuff. You can do this without any data file. You just pretty much need to drag and drop it onto FileMaker. So to find your log, it's in the FileMaker server installation. You look in the logs folder. There you go. It's adjacent to the databases or the database server folder, right? And so you can see there we've got a handful of logs, and the top call stats log is hanging out right in there with it. So we just drag that. Wayne's going to make a copy on his desktop, and then if we just drag that over on the FileMaker, I think if you do it in your dock there, Wayne, drag it to the dock.
Oh, okay. It's a mystery.
Yeah, this is that's a Mackie thing. You want to say the top row does contain field names, I think, in this case. There you go. And poof, go, do the thing. Yeah. All right, so now we have a database that looks like our top call stats log. So the stats log itself, you opened it up with any, with a text app. It's just text. It's delimited text, and FileMaker can figure that out apparently. So there's a bunch of columns in here that that are the same as old columns that we're used to seeing in our stats log. They kind of follow the same distinctions again. The numbers here. Boy, we could spend a couple of hours just talking about how to interpret the old stats logs, and that would apply here and that sort of thing, but I want to leave off on that. The numbers mean stuff, and you have to figure out sort of what scale they're on in order to interpret them in a few ways, but in general, if you've ever sat and watched the stats tick by, you can kind of tell when things get out of hand. FileMaker's done a good job of putting each of these columns into a scale that's sort of understandable just by eyeballing it. Then the individual numbers don't mean a lot. But when you go from, if you just look at like the network bytes out column there, you can see right at the top we go from 46 to 7 to 600 and change to up to 70,000 almost, right? So you can see there's a big jump there, and so you can quickly see where the outliers are, and that I think is really in general in true FileMaker form the purpose. They want this to be as complex as it is. They want it to be sort of understandable. Something that those of us who are not statistical analysts can kind of look at and get a really good sense of what's going on, or at least something we can get a toehold on, right? So the big deal here is that they've given us a couple of new values. So the network bytes and the elapsed times and wait times and start and end times, those kinds of things are already in the other logs. All right, and they, generally speaking, as I understand it, behave the same way as the other logs do, right? So we again, like I said, we got to go do our homework on what those, how those things are measured, what sort of numbers those seconds are. They're milliseconds in some cases, and they're bits in some cases, and bytes in other cases, and things like that. So there's a bit of homework to do in terms of just sort of understanding exactly what each number means. But like I said, if you just take them together and go, okay, well, the number was very small before, and then it got gigantic, I've got issues to deal with, right? So that's actually really a pretty manageable thing to work on. So the columns that we're really excited about are client name, right? That didn't exist a long time ago. We had some stats before that, but client name finally came up, and we can tell who's doing what. Before it was top call stats, but that's a big one. Now we can know, sort of who's generating this particular traffic. Then we, in the top call stats specifically now, right? This in addition to who, now we can kind of see some more of the what, and that includes the column for operation and target. So those are really the key ones that we're very interested in, because they give us a new context here. Before we had the other really important one, which was total elapsed time. That's just to the left of operation there. And that kind of tells us, the thing that happened, right? Or at the moment this log row was written, this record, in other words. It's kind of like a snapshot, if you will. Again, if hopefully all of you are not completely well versed in the way these logs work, and I'm not just preaching to the choir here. But each log row is essentially taking a snapshot at the instant that the log interval is set at. So every 1 second, this log is collecting the 25 highest elapsed times for an individual client request status. That's a lot of words. It ought to be simpler than that. But because hundreds of requests can happen simultaneously for a single client, and then of course you have many clients, it's unfortunately it's a lot of information to try to aggregate down into one little row in a table like this, right? So the idea here is, though, that you're getting a sort of snapshot once per second, and each second, every 1 second, we get 25 rows in this 25 rows in this table based on the way we're setting. We have our settings on the server done here. So it's the top 25 most expensive or longest, really, is what that comes down to. That's over here in time, total elapsed time. So the longest requests that have occurred on this, or that were occurring on the server at the time the log was taken. Okay, mouthful. From the presentation that the DevCon presenter gave. Chris, help me with the name. It's John, I think, and I can't remember the last name.
Thatcher. John Thatcher.
John Patrick?
Thatcher.
Thatcher. There you go. Sorry, a little quiet. Okay, so John's
one
session.
Who thatches the roof. Yes.
There you go. All right. So John's session demonstrated that. Oh hell! Because I'm talking about John's name, I can no longer remember what his session demonstrated. Sorry about that. We'll move on. Okay, so what we're looking at here is that I've got these top 25 calls, but they don't tell the complete story of what's going on the server. They're just sort of the most expensive things, as FileMaker describes them, and they give us a hint as to where to go looking. They say, because over here, I noticed that Wayne Jackson did something, that was a long elapsed time, and apparently that was open the file, right? And the file happened to be FileMaker server sample at the time. I can go kind of track that down now. I know that Wayne did the thing. Here's where he was. Here's his IP address and the computer name and his username and stuff like that. So I've got quite a bit of information that I can use to track that down. Likewise, I've got a timestamp over here, so I can tell when that particular thing happened. So John goes into some detail to describe how, using just this sort of simple approach, I can sort of look at what's going on here. I can then go reference the user stats log, which you can configure FileMaker Server to generate, and then I can see the whole story, right? That remember, the top call stats are just the top call, and so it doesn't tell the complete narrative of the things that were happening on the server at any given time. But with this in conjunction to the other logs, you can kind of cross-reference and go, well, what the heck was Wayne really up to? What were all of Wayne's calls once per second over in that other log, and we can kind of see a little bit more about what Wayne's activity was. So, from the I guess from the mouth of the expert there, the dude under the hood at FileMaker, we are I guess kind of tasked with coming up with a good way to cross-reference this data. Okay, so that's probably something that it will grow out of this discussion, is we'll come up with a way to take those two logs together and maybe create something in FileMaker that will allow us to easily do that. So I'm conceiving that. I don't have that prepared for tonight, naturally. Like I said, we're really coming at this fresh, but that sounds like the sort of thing we're going to need to do. So let's shift gears a little bit. Certainly, let me know if you have any questions. I mean, jump on the mic, because I can't watch the whole chat log while I'm talking. But jump on the mic and interrupt me if you have questions.
Hey, Jason?
Yes, please.
What was I'm sorry, I missed the name of that other log you said we might need to combine with?
The client log.
Yeah, the individual user stats log. Wayne, can you switch back over FM admin console? Server admin console? There you go. There you go. So this is the client stats log, okay? And that if you go to Statistics tab, on the left, there we go, sorry, and show your client stats. Now, there's nothing going on right now at the moment here, but this is sort of, again, a kind of tick by tick. So whatever your collection interval is, right now it's once per second. Let me see if I can generate some traffic for everybody to look at. This thing shows, at every interval, what's going on with every client that's making making calls to the server at that moment. There you go, Chris, thank you. So you can see there we've got a few things happening. So, and again, like I mentioned, the columns you see here are some of them are in common with the top call stats log, and so they kind of mean the same thing. We can reference them in the same ways, but we're missing the key ones here. We know that W. Jackson and Jay Sanders are doing stuff, but we have no clue what they're up to. We don't know where they are. We don't know what screen they're on. We don't know what buttons they're pushing. We don't know what scripts are running, anything like that, which turns out to be, all the useful information that we really need in order to troubleshoot performance.
Could I suggest, Jason, if you go back into, or Wayne, I guess you're driving, if you go back into the top call log, I noticed that we're looking at the top call log from like noon today, because this goes all the way back. Can you jump to the end? It's probably quicker than sorting this whole thing. Just use your scrolly bar there. There we go. Okay, so these are the things we did recently, which included like filtering that list, and you should be able to see some higher numbers, like some wait times You see how we've got some very quick things happen that were zeros, and then you have some things that were, 4 and 5,000. Well, whatever those are measured in, right? That's always been a stickler for me.
Microseconds and milliseconds, depending on the column, it turns out.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the microseconds and milliseconds, and what I was about to say, that's always been a source of annoyance for me when I try and go to look at these logs. It's like 5,000 what, One thing they did point out, when you start comparing these to the client log and the server log, which I think it would be productive to bring up the other two, and actually if we could actually, since you are the active user, let's try this. I'd like to propose an experiment, just to see if I can reproduce what I saw in the demonstration. Okay, close this file. Okay. Go into, from here, click on contact list. Now, unfortunately, I noticed that this is set to sort, which is, okay, good. Not near as bad as it was when I tried it on my machine. That was horrid.
This is a Windows machine, Chris.
Yeah, it's over the wind. Come on, give me a break. My Windows machine, by the way, is smoking. But anyway, go ahead and pull a fresh copy of the top call stats, and also pull a copy of the event log and we don't have a client log.
Yeah, we have to switch that on, by the way. That only logs when you tell it to.
Turn that on. Turn that on. Start over. Okay. So, actually, close the file. I want to get a fresh look at what it takes when you open the file, go to that client list, and then pull those 3 logs. And then I think we can compare what's that look like on the top call, what's it look like on the client stats, and what's it look like on the event log. Because that, for me, was the most powerful part of the demonstration, where he was able to isolate a single event in the top call and say, okay, you can see this is one of the worst things happening on the server, and then how, with the information on the top call, you could find out what was the server doing, what was the client doing. And really, it made it pretty easy to isolate. It was when you clicked on this layout, So go ahead, open up the file, which you may be already doing. Sorry if I'm a backseat driver now, aren't I?
All right.
Okay, and now just click on the client list. Because, by the way, this was actually pretty surprising how expensive this was, and he did almost exactly the same thing. I think he actually had even more than 1 million records. But there's this perception, of course, FileMaker pulls down whole records when it pulls down a record. We all know that, and we know that it, in a list view, it pulls down like a certain number of records ahead of, and in some cases behind, the record you're on, just to kind of preload it for you. A lesser known fact is that it pulls down the record IDs for the entire found set, which normally isn't a problem, but if you land on 1 million records, that's 1 million record IDs, and no matter how small a record ID is, 1 million is 1 million, it's a lot. So that's one of those kind of gotchas that, we normally don't have to think about. So I thought that was an interesting example. So let's grab those. Actually, if you grab those 3 items, the client stats, the event log, and the top call, and just drag those straight onto the icon, and let all 3 of them open. And open files convert, yeah, that's fine. And field names is going to be for all of them. And in all 3 of them, jump to the end, because we're concerned about what happened at the end. It was like the last thing that happened on the server. And if we could, now this is the tough part, is can we arrange them so that we can kind of see things next to each other? Let's at least make the top call stats shorter top to bottom. So we're kind of looking at the last 25 and see if we can isolate when that thing happened, or when the very bad thing happened in the top call stats. I'd say that 4,000 and some odd thing is kind of jumping out at me, right? It's actually not the one I was expecting. Can you give me a keyboard and mouse by any chance?
Yeah, I did. I'm just arranging.
You did?
Whoa.
Okay. Yeah, oh, I certainly don't want to arrange for you, because that'll probably make me dizzy from here, but okay. So let's see if we, where's your scroll bar?
It's hiding.
Can't see the scroll bar because I'm not using the scroll bar, because that makes sense, I guess. What I'm really looking for.
Drag it now.
Okay. Looking at the last 25, we've got download with lock, we've got context table, open, get file list, compare modifications. There's your login. File status. This is top, yeah, this is top call stats.
There you go. So as we're puzzling, this was what hit me right away. So just to pause for a moment. I'm looking at this going, you know, some of this stuff sounds familiar. Like I know what a modification is, I think, right? Or a login. But, you know, what's a download with lock? You know, what does, for instance, oh, I can't quite read that. That's not helpful. But, you know, context table 132, yeah, what does that mean?
Oh,
you know, what?
There were a few things that were interesting. One was that is the table with the ID 132.
Yeah,
so
I like that.
It does not give you the table name, and actually somebody asked a pointed question like, why don't you just give us the damn table name?
Yeah, for the love of God,
dude. Yeah, right. And the reason he gave is because the person who has access to this may not be a person who has access to the data schema, so it's actually a security issue. But you, as a developer, can determine what the table ID is of a given table. So, yeah, he said it's unfortunate. Of course, you could fairly straightforwardly write a FileMaker database that would translate that for you. But
hey, Chris?
Yes.
So when I tried to do that, it looked like there was a 7-digit table IDs that I was getting from the get table IDs function, and then these are what, three digits? So they were really quite off for me.
There's actually two. There are actually two table IDs, and FileMaker has always been a little wishy-washy about the terminology for a table or a table occurrence. So I suspect that you're getting one and this is the other one. Okay? I'm not positive about that, by the way. But the table occurrence has an ID and the base table also has an ID, and they are not the same thing. So that's
likewise, there are all of 2 tables in this database. Okay, so you know, the idea that we're up to 2 tables and we're in the hundreds already is probably telling. So I mean, if you ran this on a database with 50 or 100 tables, there's the potential simply that their algorithm for creating table IDs is makes big numbers. Okay.
So this is you getting the master record list, which is the thing I was talking about that I was surprised took so long. It really didn't take so long from here. I think he was doing it over the WAN, and also I think he might have had like many million records. He managed
vaguely.
He managed to make this large, which was...
Yeah, he was definitely looking at the network bytes, and they're significant around that area there, notably. But he was specifically saying that that the let's see, that's the download with lock item we're looking at. Can we scroll up a little bit? I saw the Git.
I actually cannot scroll up. We've determined.
Oh, here's is interpreting. There you are. Git file.
Oh, there was another one. Master record list. Network bytes out. Ouch.
Yeah. So this, I think, is the thing he was looking for. Okay. So, Chris, we were very, very close there, it turns out, but not quite right. So, in his example, he noted that there was a major network hit for some strange reason on opening a sample file, and he wanted to determine, what's the deal, right? Why is this such a massive number compared to other stuff going on? Why is it taking a long time to open my file? And so his demonstration was that if I'm observing this number here, right, that I've got this huge amount of data comparatively. Again, those are bytes. So anybody good at binary math there, the number of bytes there is some megabytes or something, right? What he then described is that by looking at this, we can tell that we're passing a lot of data just by getting this master list. And that's based on the number of records that are in the table that we're opening the file to. All right. So the base layout that you're opening to is, in our case, got 1 million records in it. And so therefore, just to download the sort of, I don't want to, I'm going to say index because it's kind of like that. I don't think it's the actual index, but basically the list of the records. All right. It doesn't have the record data in it or anything like that. He said this is just simply like a very simple list of the records that are in the database that the client needs to know, in other words, to function. So the server's passing just this simple list of here's the 1 million records that belong in this table. So he then went on, and we're gonna I think for my demonstration anyway, I know where Chris is going here. We're gonna skip ahead a bit. He did an intermediate step where he said let's try opening on a 0 found count. Right, so we'll open to the same layout on the same table with 1 million records, but have no records showing. So he, rejiggered his file until he could open the file with on the same layout with no records, and the result was the same, which was pretty astonishing, right? And the reason this is important is because it's 1 million records, and he actually gave some numbers to say that each one of the records passes this little ID in the list essentially to say here I am, I'm part of the list. And they represent some bits, okay? But 1 million, of, that number of bits times 1 million turned out to be like a significant amount of data that we're asking the FileMaker server to give each client just to open the system and land on that layout. And the cool thing that he was able to kind of demonstrate there was that it didn't matter that you didn't show any records. So it was all about the fact that you're sort of passing this pseudo index from the server to the client on a giant table. Yeah, go ahead.
Was that an empty table or just the same table with 1 million records, but like I've gone to like an empty table that was a blank table as a starting point.
Yeah, Jason, I'm questioning that too. Was it, in his demonstration, was he just taking the fields off the layout, or was
no? In fact, I think in the demonstration he just basically said I'm going to try to load no data on this table, right? I want to get the file to where I'm landing on a 0 found count when I get here, and the idea was that basically there's metadata that gets passed between the server and the client that is a lot of data in the case where you have a giant table. So I'd like to try to avoid super semantics here, but what he did then, and I've got an empty table, really an empty table. It doesn't have any fields or records in this file that we could load up. And if my example works the way his did, I predict that we wouldn't get a giant number there for loading that table. So that was his demonstration. Long and short is that it's an easy way to get a bump here, right? If you've got giant tables, don't load them on startup, right? Hit a table that doesn't have any records in it because there's some overhead there. And that was, a great demonstration for how to isolate something that's happening in the top call log, and then kind of work your way back through it. So we gave away, kind of cards on the table here. We're giving away the punchline, but that's the sort of exercise that we're after here. And if they were all that easy, boy, I don't know, maybe I'd be richer or something. But it's the same exercise, right? We've got to try to identify things in this log that that are outstanding, right? That where we can see from user behavior where they're going, I'm just sitting here and FileMaker says not responding or whatever, and I can't get anything done. To be able to pull up the log and try to work backward from there to figure out what they've done. So again, like I said, kind of a nice simple example, but in the real world we got to move past that pretty quick to get to the sort of things that really perplex us. So even just this week, I've been sitting with some clients and watching them work to try to determine, what is it that you're up to that's causing your server so much grief? It's bringing, every other user in your system to a halt, and things are really awful. Everyone hates this, and we got to resolve these issues quickly, right? So, so that's the kind of thing I want to get to. So this is a good example to get started with, and like I said, Chris, you got us right there to it. I think, if we want to. Think it would be worthwhile to go ahead and finish out the thing. Let's change the open process of the database so that we can see the log.
I do have a couple of questions and comments, and I wonder if others do as well. One question I have, I remember, and I see in his materials that he commented that some of these field names ended in _sec. SEC, meaning that at least in some cases they're averaging per second to make these numbers comparable. And I kind of got excited about that. I alluded to that earlier when I said it's really frustrating that none of these numbers say what the unit of measure is. Like
right.
Remote calls. Remote calls in process. Okay, I can assume that's number of calls, but elapsed time, wait time, network bytes out, in how long? You know what I mean? Like for the entire period, things like that. But in his materials, it specifically says that anything that says _sec is per second. And then I'm looking at this and seeing absolutely no fields that end in _sec. So that's kind of driving me nuts.
Good observation. I don't think I saw that, or I overlooked that note at least, so I don't have an answer, Chris.
Yeah, like I said, I got pretty excited about it. I'm like, finally, I can compare two of these logs and kind of figure out, okay, here's so many per second, and over here is also so many per second. And now I'm looking at it and seeing quite the opposite. Another comment/question I'd like to make is that my understanding was this master list that we're drawing is the master list of the found set, which would mean that if you landed on a 0 found set, you would not do this.
I took it differently because, like I said, I think his demonstration was
and I'm not sure if a test would take too long to set up. As I remember the demonstration, he was pulling fields off the layout to demonstrate that it's not the data from each record that is causing the problem. It's simply the list of record IDs. Record IDs are not data in a field. Record IDs are IDs assigned by FileMaker. They're not field data.
Okay, I do think that's a good and easy test to run. And again, like I said, I'm hoping we're coming down to the end of the meeting time tonight, but I think it's something we can finish up with, and something that everybody can kind of get a sense of what we're trying to sink our teeth into here. So I do have this sort of the final test prepped, right? But I think we can quickly make a layout with no fields on it on the contacts table, the one with 1 million records, and try to hit that table. Opening up, and we can view the log, and then we can switch to opening to the table with no records at all, and see if that has an impact here.
Well, before we do that, I think I'd like to throw it out to the group to find out, first of all, would that be interesting to the group, and would that lead to answers that would be interesting to the group, or does anyone else have any suggestions of how we can drill down on this? Because we do want to kind of throw the whole room's brains at this and figure out how we can best use it.
I would suggest if you're going to try that to remove the sort. So even if there's no fields on the layout, I would still remove the sort because FileMaker will have to download all the records just to sort them.
Right.
Okay.
If there's a found set, we are talking about not having a found set.
Now, I do think that the likewise the
in at least one of the examples,
the sort
I see what
should
you're
be
saying.
captured. Yeah, the sorts should be captured separately in the log at least, right? Especially if it in the top call log, especially, right? If it's by itself an instance. But it is a good point, right? So most of these exercises are going to be involved with trying to isolate particular things that are happening here. So finding those in a log and identifying them are key. And certainly that's a big thing that I want to try to get into if we ever can. Maybe a follow-on session is appropriate, but the operation that's shown there, to me, many of those are cryptic. They mean things that sound databasey, but I don't have a great interpretation of all of those yet. Wayne, show the index of the operation field real quick. This is not a huge file, but you can see you'll be able to see what's in there. Drag that out there. So you can guess what some of these mean, I think. But adjusting the reference count, not sure what that's about, right? We don't know exactly what FileMaker server is up to, or whether that's on server or on client or whatever's going on, right? So we've got some some new ground to cover here. And certainly overall, I think I'd like to suggest that while this is cryptic and not straightforward, and I don't get immediately the answers I'd been hoping for, like I said when I prefaced that this is a silver bullet sort of thing for us that we've been trying to troubleshoot for so long. FileMaker, I think, is letting us out a little bit of rope at a time. The guys who really know what goes on under the hood in FileMaker, when we go up and shove our file in their face and go, "Why doesn't this work?" They're going, "We can't even begin to tell you." So they are giving us a little bit more each time, and it seems like there's a great deal to this. So I think you got to approach this being ready to climb that learning curve, and it's probably steep. So I'm looking forward to, like I said, kind of really learning how to understand what these things mean, and then be able to apply them to what's going on in the client experience, how these things actually correspond to what the user's seeing on their screen. So any comment there? I mean, do we want to go on with this experiment? Does anybody else have an idea of anything to do?
Sorry, if I can just throw something in here real quick. What I'm not seeing here is the sort. Is that part of one of the scripts that's being run, and is that being defined in the next column, the side operation?
Yeah, that's making me wonder too. Maybe I noticed that there's query and there's query find.
Right.
And I'm wondering if they're using the word query in the broader sense like they do in SQL. You know what I mean? Where in SQL, query means way more than a find. That may be interesting. What if we do a find for equals query right here? Can somebody with the Mac do that? Yeah, does it give us any more? And maybe like scroll to the, there's only 16 of them. Yeah, in the interest of this, which whether or not we do the other thing might be informative. What if we were to clear out the logs, like open those logs or delete those logs, right? And then do something, and then do something small. So we're not looking at, particularly in the top calls where we have all the way back to a couple of days ago, right? Where we could say all we have done is open this database and gone to this layout. What do we see in order? Maybe that would help us interpret.
Wayne, are we on the list layout in the database itself behind there? I think it looks like, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If we were to go to your logs folder, delete the logs, and then just resort this record by some other, or resort this list by some other field.
Good plan.
It should create a new log and then give us an indication of what that looks like.
So sort.
Yeah, that's the default one there. And again, remember most of these fields are empty, right? So this is shouldn't be that hard for the server, but again, we're pretty isolated, so hopefully that's enough to go on. Like I said, mostly empty. Wayne, pick any one.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, enough to make a dialogue. That's something, right?
Okay, and then we'll need to close out the logs that we already have open here, right? Nope. We still got everything.
Oh, how interesting. All right.
Yeah, I'm confused too.
Did you delete
Trash.
those? Move to trash.
I really thought so.
I thought so too. Okay. So now do something.
Do it again. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Sorry. This one.
This is the poke it with a stick portion of the presentation, guys.
Yeah.
In case you were wondering what that meant, right? This is in fact what things devolve to sometimes in troubleshooting, right?
And now we don't have logs.
Yeah, nothing. Huh.
I think FileMaker server didn't like the fact that you deleted the logs while it was running.
All right, let's turn off, or let's switch the setting on and off again, maybe, Wayne.
Okay. And now let's do the thing again.
All right. And poke. Commence poke.
Is that
Hey,
a sharp
there we
enough? Is that a sharp enough stick? Did it twitch?
Yeah.
All right.
In the eye.
All right. All right. This is looking promising. This may not be good, but it'll surely be new. Okay, so we got an event log. And a completely empty client stats.
Interesting.
And a completely empty top call stats.
That's really interesting.
How often are we collecting them?
Every second? I mean, surely we got there, right?
Huh.
Wild.
Do you have to restart the server, possible?
No.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, seems unlikely.
Well,
I
say that with trepidation. I'm like, please, for the love of God, tell me we don't have to restart the server.
I'm just saying they're missing and it's empty, but I don't,
Yeah.
It's reasonable to guess at that, but I mean we did get our event log up there that registered a few hits. So I mean, in my experience, FileMaker server does not require you to restart the server in order to create new logs. But yeah, we're out on the bleeding edge here a little bit. So I think we're down to it's 3 minutes to 8. But so I think in terms of workshopping. First of all, our group could use some practice. So next time we workshop, guys, make sure you do your homework and come prepared, please. But really, like I said, this was the point: is that this is actually pretty complex, right? I mean, this is one of those things that while it's not as high profile as the PHP API when it came out, that was a big deal, and there was a great deal of buzz about it, but it was a huge learning curve, and so the FileMaker community was like stymied. They were like, we can't be PHP developers. We're FileMaker developers. So we knew it was there, and we knew it was available to us, but it was just out of reach somehow, right? And so, I don't think this is as complex as that. The body of knowledge is not on a par with PHP development, but at the same time, it's a toolkit that's available to us, and we've got to do some work here to kind of get our heads around this and understand what we can do with it. So, like I said, we're right in the throes of deploying FileMaker Server 15 for a couple of our clients who are having some issues that are at the moment just kind of got us turned in knots because we can't figure out what's going wrong and go fix that particular thing. So we're gonna put this up, and we're gonna look at these logs and try to determine, based on whatever cryptic mess they tell us, if we can, find some new threads to pull and understand what's going on, for the client, and what's driving the server so nuts that it can't get its job done. So I think it makes sense to probably wrap up here at this point, but this is a big topic, and as we've gotten into it just a hair here, I think you can all get a sense that there's a lot to understand, and there's some more homework. So I mean, even if this means as little to you as it does to me, but you haven't spent the time in the old logs understanding what all those numbers meant already, it's probably truly baffling. So we're going here. We're going to go. We're going to dig into this in much deeper detail over time, and perhaps there's an opportunity to come back and do a follow-on ourselves to say, here's some more about what we found out about this, and perhaps we do dig up that silver bullet at some point, and go here's a great method for interpreting logs, pinpointing problem processes in the interface, in the design, and in the structure that may that you can go and correct and get your performance issues resolved. And that's not me driving, by the way, so I now have stuff to try to determine where I think Wayne is headed to.
Yeah,
Wayne,
I'm playing around.
Speak up. All right.
No, I was continuing on the why aren't these things updating? Yeah, they're still very small. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, so anyway, group, I do wish that we could have made some more headway naturally, but I'm not particularly ashamed of this. Like I said, I've spent many years now, poring over the stats logs, on a time. It's been a few years now, but several years back, I actually spent many days and even weeks with FileMaker Inc. and their engineers and some of their sales side, some of their product experts and stuff like that, very closely reviewing performance logging, these stats logs from FileMaker server and the performance logs that the Windows server can generate to try and troubleshoot the very same kinds of problems that we're still seeing from time to time today, and and the overall outcome here is that this is very promising. I mean, these are great new tools that even 5 or 6 years ago weren't available to those folks. They couldn't look at FileMaker server from any angle under the hood, from our vantage or anything, and tell as much about what's going on the server as we can now with this tool. So, in that sense, although like I said, it is a little bit daunting for me and perhaps everyone, it's very promising. So, bit of learning to do, but at the same time, like I said, very very encouraging, very exciting prospect that now we may have a chance to work on some of these things in a much more efficient, fashion.
All right. Well, I think we have run out of time. Hope everybody had a good time, and hope everybody has at least some more to look into as far as the new features of 15 and the top call logging. I know we do still. Look forward to hearing back from people who do find out more about this. Let's keep the discussion open. By all means, if you find stuff out and want to do a prezo on this, or even just a quick demo in a future FMPUG as a follow-up, I'd love to hear it. And always the impassioned plea for anybody who wants to do a session on just about anything for FMPUG. We always want to hear new voices. So, with all that being said, we will see you next month, and hope you guys have a good month between now and then.